I'm now the introducer. So Mel is going first, and Mel will give you her bio, but I know that she did teach art, and we've seen her beautiful things on Facebook. And if you've been to her house, you've seen more of her beautiful work. Who's second?
Ronnie.
Oh, well, all right, then I'll just, yeah. Another presenter is Jane Kamen. You will see her quilts around. Jane is quite an amazing artist with fabric and fiber, besides being a wonderful grandma. And well, I'm going to go for Gretchen. Gretchen has been on the studio tour many times, and I hope some of you have been there. She does stained glass artwork and actually seems to make money at that, which is amazing. And then Stevie Jane's work, she'll talk about that. Is that acrylic or mixed things, different media? I am so happy that they've agreed to do this. I think I started over a year ago talking to each of them individually, putting the bug in their ear, and we finally were able to come up with a day and that they could all be with us. So please welcome our speakers.
Hey, Mel?
You? Will that be safe up here? Yeah, there's a. Hmm?
Watch the wire, you're standing behind it. There you go. Wire behind you.
I step over this. Hmm?
Yeah, if you run out.
Oh, yeah.
If you
Yeah,
run
it's
out of
been-
power.
It's been going a while.
If you run out of power.
Okay. That's one less. Okay. My paintings offer a personal view of the world. Oops. Okay. My paintings offer a personal view of the world, viewed from my home state of Alabama, my current residence in North Carolina, and my travels. Inspired by my photographs, the paintings freely interpret the colors, simplifying or altering details to offer a slightly abstracted and often expressive vision. Time of day and seasonal changes are of special interest to me, especially transitional periods, such as the early morning light or sunset, or trees with fall or spring foliage. Bodies of water and dramatic skies are often as important a subject as trees, plants, or animals, but equally important to me is the expression of a feeling or a mood. See, I don't like to talk either. Okay. Transition Honshu. Transition because I began to seek imagery, even though greatly abstracted. Honshu is the name of the mulberry paper I used. It is a Japanese paper that is wet when pliable, that is pliable when wet. The surface may be manipulated to create a rough texture. And I brought it back there. You can look at the textures up close later. This is the type of painting from which I was making a transition, totally non-objective. Late in a series of about 40 canvases of this size, 5'6" by 5'6", I began making these when I was in graduate school at the University of Alabama and continued into the early 1980s. This painting was the first one where mulberry paper, the paper I used over there, was applied to the surface of the canvas. This is a wall of water-inspired paintings. The painting on the far left, although very abstract, is an aerial view of a pond. On the far right is an improvisation of a more recognizable subject, clean water, represented as an idyllic scene of a lake. Both, the last two on either end were watercolors. This is the one in the middle, and it's also seen back there. It's oil. And both pictured here in the actual painting, this was inspired by the first time traveling from Birmingham to Houston. It was late at night when we crossed the bridge across the river at St. Charles, Louisiana. I was shocked to see the lights of a large factory. This painting is my favorite from a year-long series protesting the devastation of the environment along the coast, the Gulf Coast. All painted in thick oil paint, applied with a palette knife. I named the series Terrible Beauty. I'm going to show you a number of slides that are water. Water figures strongly in these views that were inspired by the Gulf of Mexico. The first was painted from a photograph I took on the weekend at the beginning of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. I was unaware until I got back to Birmingham that it had started. Watercolor. And stop me if I'm going too fast. I would call it Turner's Yellow, but actually Turner's Yellow is not the name of the paint. It is a name of a paint, but I was really thinking of the painter Turner because that looks like his colors to me. I've used several different yellows in there, watercolor yellows. Now, these are mostly watercolor landscapes, often with paths or streams leading your eye through the painting. A little bit slower, okay. Persephone was the figure in Greek mythology who the myth figures around the seasonal changes, and Persephone's path is a path going down to the underworld. And during the winter months, she is in the underworld and then she comes up. And I have pictured flowering vines, so it's like you're anticipating her coming up out of the underworld. These are more spectacular than the ones. Yeah, it does help. Unfortunately, the paintings are very small. I did not bring the watercolors because most of these are very small. The larger ones are either too big or not framed yet.
Compliments to the person who took the photographs and made that possible because there is.
Now, I did have some help on the computer loading these. Most of these right here are 16 by 20 unframed. And then with a frame, it's almost 18 by 24, but it's, and you would not be able to see a lot of detail. It works better in slide. And then my really big ones, I couldn't carry anymore. I used to have a car top carrier and take them around, but that was in my younger days. Anne actually gave this the name Magical. That was, she thought it was magical. That was actually the last painting I did before I had cataract surgery. And I realized later I was seeing things mostly in brown tones. I had almost no perception of blue.
Did you work on these from photos?
Mostly, yes, but photos I took.
Your questions.
She asked if I do these mostly from photographs, and my reply was that mostly they're from photographs that I take, but I very often change a lot, like positions of things and colors and what I select, and yeah. Arches is a very expensive watercolor paper, and I think that's one of the most important things to do is to always use the very best paper you can get your hands on because it makes a big difference with watercolor. And so even when I would have students, I would encourage them to use good paper. So what?
I have Arches paper. Will it ever look like that?
Only if you spill some watercolor on it. I know. Well, there is a difference. There is a light, bright watercolor paper, Arches watercolor paper, and there's heavier texture. I use the very heaviest and the very whitest that is available. You actually can buy different types of Arches paper. And I use the pads so that it's always sealed. It won't become buckled up when you use it. You don't have to put tape around the edges, which never worked well with me anyway. So it stays flat. I think that was the last one I did before I started making the slideshow. This is an oil, and I did this in Birmingham. I haven't been able to work in oils because I now have my studio in my house, and we have a bedroom right across the street, across the hall from the studio, and it's just smelly. But it's also the very thick oil paint that I showed you with the painting back there, very textured. And I'm showing you this because I oftentimes use the same photograph or the same subject to repeat. So this was done last winter. And it is a little bit different view than the one I had painted in Indian Springs. I taught there for 10 years. Lovely, lovely place. This is actually on the campus, acres and acres of beautiful land with lakes. And this land bridge going across the lake because it takes you a long time to walk all the way around the lake. And so for convenience, they built this little land bridge. And I called it a quiet place because it was a time that I was a little bit upset, and you were too. It was after Trump was elected, but before he was inaugurated. And that was kind of my feeling. So the colors are extremely different than the ones that when I was in Springs. This is a very large oil painting. Okay, very large oil painting. And this was a subject that I had taken photographs for many times. It was the same lake, same day as the oil painting, but this is a watercolor I did more recently, I think in 2022. This is actually a tree at Indian Springs, but it was done later, watercolor. I've done a lot of different paintings of this tree, but I made the horizon line skewed on purpose. It's when I'm really feeling a little disoriented, a little angry, then I sometimes skew the horizon line.
Yeah, that's good for you to know.
Hmm?
Yeah, that's good for you to know.
This was actually a house that is on the 15501. It's very close to Harris Teeter. But I didn't know exactly where to put it because by then we had moved here and it had trees. So I put it in this middle place and now we're going into travel photographs. Manteo, North Carolina. First time we went to the Outer Banks and we drove through there. Didn't stay other than just exploring that whole area. Oops, I went too fast. Okay, now we're going into travel, mostly in Europe. Uh, I usually can do a painting in about 10 days. But I paint a lot. This is what I do with all my time now that I don't have to teach.
Experience that you feel, or
I took photographs when we went to Europe, a lot of photographs, hundreds. Huh? Well, remember, I used to teach, and one thing I taught was perspective. I understand perspective.
We're gonna,
Huh?
we're gonna have to hold
Oh.
questions because we're gonna run out of time.
Okay,
So we'll have time to ask questions, ask and answer.
okay.
But I didn't mean to cut anybody off, but we gotta.
That's
make a
okay.
march.
I will keep quiet because these are all right now travel. Yes, I know, I know. Also, some of these are much larger than what I'm working on now. So those would take longer as well. That's a big one.
I'm gonna ask a question real quick. Are you thought of putting these in the book? Sure. Beautiful.
Thank you. No, I haven't. Now, these are all going to be botanicals. Yeah, took this one at the North Carolina Botanical Gardens. And the next one I took at the Birmingham Botanical Gardens. Very different gardens. Yay. And I have two other versions of this if you want them. I have over the years drawn and painted lots of these. It's one of my favorite plants. And that was on a porch until we let it die. Yeah. And this is also a favorite plant, not this specific plant, but when we came back for our first trip to Key West, his car was full of crotons and every other. All right, this is the last group of slides. When we moved to North Carolina, I had a class in Chinese brush painting. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Asian art, though, has been a long time inspiration. I built and designed this screen in 1981. Chinoiserie is the name given to 18th century design influenced by Chinese art. Now, this is where, when we moved to North Carolina, I took a class in Chinese brush painting. After many weeks of practice, I couldn't even hold the brush to satisfy my Chinese teacher. I decided to be happy just exploring a variety of subjects using my Western way of getting the line variety that I admire in Asian art. And these are much larger than the small watercolors. It's actually at Duke Gardens. And this is the last one. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. You see my handshake?
Amy, did you want to?
We introduced everybody.
Ah.
We just have a choice of who we're going to go next to. Which artist is coming up? All right, we're choosing Stevie.
Because I realized that some of these are upside down. There's an excuse.
Yeah. Um, We can get, maybe while you're doing that, we'll get Gretchen. Oh, you're done. All right. I need your computer and we'll plug it in. Let's see. I got USB-C.
And on the.
If you can make it go up to there, that'd be great. All right.
I just want to get this over with because I don't like talking too much either. Okay.
We have nothing. I'm not sure why. We can try a different USB port. Hold this.
Okay, this could be what I have in my bag.
Maybe. Want to try yours?
This thing that's called a dongle.
All right, well, that's what I was trying with mine, but.
Are they still called dongles?
Oh,
You have nothing. Huh, okay.
I see the problem.
Oh, you see the problem. He sees the problem.
This is a problem.
It's not plugged in. Yeah, something happened. There was there was a
plug.
flash. Oh, there we go. Gotcha.
Mechanical problem, the plug came out.
Okay. So most people know that my profession was a psychologist, so I'm going to do this in a different way. Okay. This is going to be sort of more talky psychological. Because I thought the question was, what is the importance of art? Right. So I think art is extremely important, but I'm going to focus on why it's important to me. But I'm just going to say this is in a nutshell why I think art is important. Several reasons. They're up there. You can read them. First of all, art allows us to connect to ourselves, other people, and the earth in a symbolic way so that you're not feeling the full strength of your emotions. It's sort of manageable because you know it's not real, but then you can still get a deep emotional connection, regardless of the fact that you know it's not real. And that stimulates empathy. You know, ever have the experience you go into a museum and you see a painting and you suddenly start to feel very deeply and you're not sure why? That's why. Secondly, and when I talk about art, I mean every form of creative self-expression, everything. It helps both the artist and the viewer to integrate their thoughts and feelings. And if you ever studied psychology, you know that people who can integrate thoughts and feelings are psychologically healthy. So art is healthy for your psyche. Thirdly, creative self-expression can be a powerful vehicle for emotional healing for both the artist and the viewer. And this is what I focus on in my life when I talk about my history using art. Fourthly, creating a work of art provides the artist with feelings of mastery. A lot of people love to paint and draw because they're good at it. It makes them feel good. They feel like they've accomplished something. They work hard, and that's a great feeling. Fifthly, making art can be extremely pleasurable and relaxing. It actually affects your brain and affects your pleasure centers, and it calms you down when you're upset. It makes you happy when you're sad. So it just feels good. And then finally, as I know you all know, artists can become catalysts for social and political change. And I've seen a lot of great cartoons lately, and they make you want to do something because you kind of feel it on a gut level, the stuff that's happening in the world, and it motivates you. Okay, so I'm starting from an early age here, just to show you what art has meant to me growing up and the meaning that it had for me personally. This is my first oil painting. I painted, I was involved in art and very excited about it since I was a little girl because I love color. And I remember I had a little coloring book when I was like 3 years old, and it was The Colors. I don't know if any of you had it, and had Mr. Yellow meets, Mrs. Blue, and they have Little Green, And I thought that was the most amazing thing in the world, that you could control that. You can mix two different colors and come out with something unique and different, and you can control it. So I always loved that. So I took like private lessons with some lady in her basement. And that's also where I learned to love the smell of oil paint. And that, of course, got me into trouble because I developed allergies from it after a while. And this is something then I went and took group art lessons with another, person in town in Great Neck, Long Island. And she had us copy famous paintings. So it's not my painting. This is a painting I copied. This is my version of Van Gogh's self-portrait. And you can see I was a moody kid just by how moody it is. I was a moody kid. I was overly sensitive. And art helped me to relax and calm down. You know, it's like I could be totally overstimulated and upset, and then I'll paint in my room for a while and I'm fine. When's dinner? You know? So this is me when I was 15. It's a self-portrait, and I think it kind of captures the kind of kid I was. You know, moody, overly sensitive. And that was just done probably in a school notebook with a ballpoint pen. Okay, so this is my first attempt at making a painting from imagination. I was also 16. And I was also super depressed. First semester of 11th grade, I got really depressed. Not going to go into that. But this has helped me come out of it. And this painting sort of represented, you know, something bad happened in the past. I'm, you know, mastering it. I'm rising above it. And then it's all joy and light jumping off into the wonderful future. And I would look at it. It's a giant painting. It's like, I don't know, not giant, but it's like 40 by 30 or something like that. It was big, bigger than that, actually. And my parents had it in their house for like ages. So I, you know, painted pretty much through college. And I would go to the Art Students League where I would, you know, paint from models. And I studied with some guy named Isaac Sawyer, whose brother's very famous, but he was never famous. And I was kind of serious about it, but then I also smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day when I was in my 20s. So anyway, let's just say that oil paint and cigarettes don't mix. And I developed nosebleeds. And so doctor said, stop painting in oil. So of course, being young, I said, well, blank this, you know, I'm not going to paint at all. So anyway, I didn't paint at all for 30 years. Okay, so then I went to graduate school and became a psychologist. I focused on my career, but there was something missing. You know, I felt there was kind of an emptiness, like I had sort of risen to what I thought was the top of what I wanted to do. And I just kind of still felt like it wasn't really me, like I was acting, like I was playing a role, kind of. I was good at it, but I didn't feel totally connected. So this is what happened. This is kind of an emotional story. So what happened was I did a lot of art therapy with my clients. And so one day came back from Thanksgiving at my in-laws' house in Virginia. And the next morning we're all tired and my dad calls and he says, your mom is dying. You got to get on the next plane, you know, to New York, and you got to get there before this evening or you're going to miss her. You know, you're not going to be able to say goodbye. So I didn't expect my mom to be dying. You know? So I literally went into shock, like just psychological trauma, you know, whatever it was. And what I remember is I found myself, I was literally walking around and around in circles in my kitchen. I couldn't like stop. It was like a motor. I was, you know, I was disconnected like from my ability to control like what I was doing. I knew I had to sit down, call the airport, cancel patients, blah, 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 but I couldn't move. And so I asked my husband, Jeff, to go down to the basement and to get me a ball of Sculpey, which is like clay. So he did. And then I did what I do with like my clients when they're overwhelmed and they want to use art. So I said, turn on Cat Stevens, put on Tea for the Tillman, you know, so that I can hear these sobby 70s songs to remind me of, you know, stuff. And then I closed my eyes and I just started molding the clay with my eyes closed, listening to music. And of course, then I started crying. I got in touch with my feelings. I could function. And then I called the, you know, and then I did what I had to do. But the moment when what you're supposed to do in this exercise, which I created a long time ago, is you're supposed to stop sculpting with your eyes closed when the clay feels right in your hand, sort of like when it's communicating what it's supposed to communicate to you. So I opened my eyes to see what my unconscious mind wanted to tell me. And this is what it told me. This is what I sculpted. And I don't know what your impression of this is or what your association of this is, but my association was that it was my mother. You know, I felt I had actually made my mother. And to me, it reminded me of an empty pelvis. It was like all that's going to be left, I thought in my head, of my mom. the thing, you know, that cage that kept me in all those years, you know, was going to be bones, you know, and I kind of brought me in touch with my mortality. And I started to cry and I said, Jeff, I'm done with psychology. I'm going to start to retire. I'm going to do what I want to do. And nobody can stop me. I don't care what anybody thinks. This is what I'm doing. Because I don't want to sit at a desk. I don't want to be a psychologist for the rest of my life and then, you know, die without having done what I really want to do. So anyway, so I thought, okay, I'm going to paint again, but I couldn't because I was scared because I had lost the muscle memory. I just, you know, didn't think I could do it. I didn't have much confidence. So I did all kinds of other things. Jan isn't here, but Jan was actually involved with this because I don't know if anybody remembers, I got some people and we went to the Carborough Bazaar or something and we had a little art booth with just ethical culture people selling their stuff. And so this painting was my first oil painting that I made after 30 years when I hadn't touched anything for a long time. And it's strictly from my imagination. And this illustrates as sort of the mastery element of art is that it was around the elections and Obama was the primary and Obama was, you know, running against Clinton and I forget who else. And so I decided, you know, all this new age stuff about law of attraction, you know what I'm talking about? And like, you make what you want to see and it'll happen. All you have to do is think about what you want and the universe will give you what you want. So I thought, well, this is really cool. I'm going to make Barack Obama in a canoe race with Hillary Clinton and he's going to win. And there's Barack Obama in the canoe. And human figures, I was clearly rusty with that. So anyway, the outcome was great. Barack Obama won the primary, but I hated the painting. So I gave it to the PTA thrift shop. Then these were other little paintings that I made. Jeff loves goats, so I saw a picture in the paper of goats and made the goats, and I like lotus flowers. So I made a few little oil paintings, but this was my first attempt to make a big abstract painting with oils as an adult. And I'm going to just say a few words about why is abstract painting special, you know. And I'm taking this from the internet because when I start making up my own words to explain this, it gets a little weedy. Okay, abstract painting is special because it challenges traditional notions of representation and invites viewers to engage in introspective evaluation. It taps into the subconscious, which we know, allowing artists to express their inner thoughts, emotions, and perception through non-representational forms. The absence of recognizable objects frees the mind from its normal constraints, encouraging viewers to interpret and assign personal meanings to the artwork. And this enables a profound connection between the artist, the artwork, and the viewer. To me, it's very much like a Rorschach, if you've ever seen a Rorschach test. I love Rorschach interpretations. And then it went out of style. But anyway, in the Rorschach, you show people these ink blots, and whatever comes to mind, you write it down. They tell you in detail, you know, what are they thinking? And that represents their projection, you know, of what's going on in their unconscious mind. They wouldn't be able to tell you that verbally. They can only kind of visualize it and repeat it. And there's real reasons for that. Neurologically, when you look at abstract art, your occipital, prefrontal cortex, and limbic system become stimulated. And it also creates new pathways between all these systems in the brain. So you're getting smarter. When you look at a piece of abstract art, you are getting smarter. This promotes creativity, critical thinking, and emotional processing, prompting the brain to fill in the gaps, which helps us to make sense of ambiguity. And so it also fosters, you know, flexible thinking and emotional problem solving. Maybe not real life problem solving, but emotional problem solving. So as you are aware, we live in an era where there's a lot of ambiguity. You don't know what the heck is going on, you know, at any minute. And so at least when I paint, it helps me just to look at it in concrete terms. These are colors, these are shapes, these are forms, and they're going to come together and symbolically the world's going to get better. So this is just a picture. No, they're all different things. They're oils. A lot of times I start with acrylic. I actually use roller brushes in acrylic, and then I go into it with oil paint. So they're both. So this is my first little juried art show. It took me from 2006 when I started doing art again to 2013 to something's beeping. Anyway, so this was my first little art show at the Art Center in Carrboro. It was the community art show. Pretty much anyone could do it. And then what typically happens with me is I'm more interested in the process than the product with my art. I'm interested in what it does for me as I'm doing it and what it might do for someone when they see it, not necessarily selling it. So anyway, this morphed over the years, and then I finally sold it in 2013. And at that time, it was called Migrations, and it was about immigration, people coming from all over, and then congealing in certain places, and how rough the terrain was to get there, and all that stuff. So this was my really prolific period where I was painting again. I would work during the day because I still had to work to earn a living. And then I would paint all night, till about 2 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was in ecstasy because I was doing what I really like to do. So this is called Swimming Through a Dream. And it's sort of a combination of figurative and abstract art. And that's what I aim for, but it doesn't always happen. Like seeing something in the forms and then making it sort of like, now you see it, now you don't. And this is a now you see it, now you don't. Raise your hand if you see a lady. Okay. No. So it took me like over a year to see something. When I finally saw it, I decided, okay, I can stop now. I've seen something. So, oh yeah. Yeah. That's good. That means you have a very active mind. So this one is sort of a political, not really, a social commentary. It's called Fire in the Sky. And it was like that first really bad California fire. And I was sort of terrified and at the same time in awe of the power of the universe to create such a strong. I've never listened to Deep Purple, so it couldn't have been that. No. This one has a lot of emotional significance to me. It's called Just Keep Swimming. Raise your hand if you've seen Finding Nemo. Okay. There's a line in there, just keep swimming. Yeah. Oh, you're running out of time. Okay. Quickly, these are just, different abstract paintings. You can see some of them over there. And this is like a recent change where I started to experiment with painted paper collage. And this is like taking old black and white pieces of Gustav Klimt paintings and sort of rearranging them to tell a story. So one is Mother of the Brides, woman with a daughter who's lesbian marrying another woman, and how does that feel to her, The other one is It's Her Choice, about, it's women's right to choose whether they want to have kids or not. And that's it.
All right. Gretchen, would you like to come up next? Let's see.
Can you?
What's the
Forward, yeah. Hello. I've always been a crafty person, more thinking of that more than artsy, but because I got it from my mother. She was very crafty. She was always hooking rugs from time I was little. She learned that from her father. And when I was little, we would always, every Christmas, get together and make some sort of Christmas ornaments. And even going into high school, I got into the more like poster design. I ran for office one time in senior high. I didn't win, but I had the best posters on the cafeteria wall of anybody. And when I went to college, I didn't think of doing fine arts because I just didn't think, well, I don't want to be a painter, sculptor. And if I had known about design, to major in graphic design, I would have, but I wasn't aware of that. So I kind of mixed and matched majors until towards the end, I thought, oh, I'll do a self-defined major in communications. So I took some design classes, some tech writing classes, and managed to get out in 4 years with a degree. And then I ended up with a job at an ad agency, which is not what I had originally wanted to do, but I had the skills of having worked at my dad's weekly newspaper when I was in high school, laying out ads and that kind of thing. And that's what got me the job at the ad agency. It had nothing to do with my degree. But I was always doing some sort of crafty thing, posters. I did batiks for a while, but that's done on fabric. I don't like to sew. So you can only have so many wall hangings. Well, and I did silk screens. I learned to screen print, and I would, even in high school, I started screen printing my own Christmas cards, and have continued to make my own Christmas cards every year since. But now I do the design and order them. But and I did T-shirts. I screen printed T-shirts and did some airbrush. And so I was messing around with this. I always had to do something with my hands. And that was like my mom. She was always busy with her hands. She taught herself basketry and pine needle baskets and caning, making chair seats and all that. And I'd always wanted to do stained glass, but I thought, oh, I bet it's so hard to cut glass. But a friend had started doing it and said, no, look at, this is how you do it. You get a little hand cutter, score it, it breaks. And I never looked back. And that was in 1980. And I love the colors of glass. There's just so much variety. And I love that it can be structural as well. I made boxes and lampshades, but the light coming through the different colors of glass and the textures it's just mesmerizing, and I haven't gotten bored with it since. And you see my studio here. I've got plenty of light, and there's lots of storage for glass because every scrap is usable. So I'm running out of space to store it. But you never know what color you're going to need. And I go through my bins and I can find, oh, this little piece here. And some of the smaller pieces that I don't save, I pass on to people that do mosaic work because they can use the little pieces too. Okay. There it goes. Now this piece was one of my most recent, and I came up with that. I do some abstract, though I tend to like realistic kind of work. But I had those little multicolored squares left over from a previous job, and I thought, I want to use those somehow. And it took me a while to messing around with it to figure out how to put them to use to make a panel. And then I found the other streaky glass and different aspects that I could add to it, and it worked out. Whoops. Okay. Now, one of the things I get asked is, what's the difference between fused glass and stained glass? Well, all the glass that I use is stained glass. It's colored glass with various shapes and textures in it. Fused glass is glass that you cut stained glass and layer it and put it into a kiln so it all melts together. Now, this Fox piece that I did, you can see on the top right the layers of various cut glass, the white, the gold, little strips of black and gray, and then the powder frit that when it melts, it gives you shading. And then in the bottom, you see how once it's all melted in the kiln, it all blends together into one solid piece. And then I just added stained glass elements around it. But I was kind of disappointed because white glass is not, doesn't let light through. So it comes out more solid, whereas the gold glass is more cathedral. It lets the light through. So I wasn't that happy with it, but it was a gift, so nobody can complain. Now here's a series of panels I did for a customer that had 4 transoms above their living room windows. And I did the design, you can see that on the top. And then I did all the individual fish and turtles in the kiln, fused glass. And then I did the regular cut glass around it with the little globe or nuggets of glass that I use for the bubbles. And it worked out. I've done a lot of fish in time. Now, this was a panel I did for friends, high school friends. They wanted the lighthouse. It's up on Lake Erie. And it happened to be the 200-year anniversary of that lighthouse the year I did it. But there again, you can see the detail of the individual little pieces of glass for the tower that I laid out. And you have to glue them together a little bit with Elmer's glue so it doesn't move in the kiln when it's melting. And the Elmer's glue burns off. And what shows as yellow, actually, once it's fired, you can see it turns red. Some glass, before it's kiln fired, may even look clear, and then you fire it and it's purple or it's yellow, which is really a problem when you're saving all your scrap. Because I'll use the scrap and realize, oh, that was yellow. I thought it was red. So I hate that glass, but a lot of it's made that way. So you have to be careful. And then one of the cool things is that the stained glass comes with the different color streakiness in it. So by picking and choosing, you can get the clouds as a nice cloudy dark look. And that's one of the things I like. Fused glass is interesting. You can get a lot of detail that you couldn't get if you were cutting and soldering every little part. But at the same time, I love the outlines you get in regular stained glass with the solder lines. It helps define the picture. Now here's some more fish. And in this case, I did little strips with the swimming little tiny fish. And then used for the bigger fish, there's that textured glass it's called a model glass, and it gives a nice fish texture to it. And there you can combine it. And then also with some of the clear layers, there's different textures that you can use. So there again, the variety of texture and color and movement that's in the glass, in the sheets of glass, that's very usable. Now, this was a panel I did for someone, and here again, there's the fish themselves are done with fused glass. I actually soldered in place the couple seashells, real shells at the bottom. And then for some of the corals, the glass has those textures and colors in it. And I thought, oh, that looks like coral. It's just perfect. So by combining all these elements, now the light coming through from the top, that was really not in the glass. It just happened to be coming through when I put it up in the window to take the photo. So, but it looks like, oh, she planned that. No, I didn't. But what's neat, I've used a lot of seashells you can put the foil around the edge of the shell and then solder it in place. Now, this I did for a job for a person that lives in an old slave cabin on a former plantation. And her daughter lives in the big house, and then she decided to live in the little house that was the cook's cabin. So she wanted this door done to honor the ladies that had cooked in that house. And I found pictures of collards and okra, and it was a photo of her fireplace in the house that I used. And there I did the fused glass for like the okra and the collards so you can get the little lines in it and make it look real. And the same with the fire, the coals in the fire and the stone around the fireplace. Those were all single panels that I fused in my kiln, so I didn't have to individually solder every little stone. But and the face was actually about 4 inches tall. But you can get that kind of detail in it by layering the little thin pieces of glass and melting it together. And I did it all from photos. I found a photo online of a lady with the rolling pin and was able to trace the outlines and make it into the piece of glass. Now here's 2 of my mirrors that I've done with the seashells. And with the whelk shell, like in the orange one, the top left, I use a Dremel tool to cut the top off the shell. And that way I can solder the edge on flat against the back and solder it in place. And then I try to make the design kind of follow the lines of the seashells. Now, this is something else you can do with the fused glass. I did the glass itself fused flat in a circle with the stripes, and you fuse it and it's a flat piece. Then you put it back in the kiln on top of a form. It was a stainless steel form, and you let the glass melt over top of it, and it slumps and makes that handkerchief kind of shape. And I have different forms, so I can do bowls, just a regular soft form or a curved or whatever. And when you fuse the glass all into one piece, I go up to about 1480 degrees in my kiln. But when you slump, you only have to go about 1250 or 1300, just enough that the glass becomes more liquid. If you let it go too high, it just drips all off. Now, this is the one I did that's just solid fused. It's not very big. It was about 10 inches or 11 inches wide, but all in one piece. And you cut the black strips for the trees and little spots of white for the snow. And the shading for the trees on the snow is just some gray glass. But once it all melts together, there's no exact lines. So it gives it kind of and the spots with like the stone, that was glass I had that had those little speckled spots in it. So it gave it a look of texture. Oh, that one was real quick. Yeah, it was small. Now, this is one of my favorite pieces. Many years ago, I did it, but our first 4 cats, and the cats individually were done in the kiln. And the kiln I use, it's up in my studio, is about a square foot wide, so you can get the size. The white cat was about a square foot. And then like the geraniums are all one solid piece, but then the others, the roses, the trees, a lot of that is regular stained glass. So you can get detail with the fused that you wouldn't be able to get if you were trying to do it all in cut glass. But those were my favorite kitties. They're long gone now, and I've had many other favorites since then. Now, this is one of the recent sheets of glass I bought at the stained glass store up in Durham. The glass comes that way. It's called Baroque, and you can get it in different colors. And I saw that piece and I said, I got to have that. I don't know what I'm going to use it for. And sometimes I might do a design where I just want, I want that little curved part right in the middle. So you end up turning the whole sheet into scrap. But it's just fabulous glass. And a lot of times I don't know what I'm going to use the glass for, but I'll see it. The color speaks to me, the texture. And so I just find a space for it in my studio. And when I need it, I have it. Of course, there's so many times I'm working and it's like, with all that glass I have, I don't have this particular color. Well, it's back to the store. And the stained glass store up in Durham has stock. it's dangerous for me to go there because it's rare that I walk out for less than a couple $100, but it's all good. I can use every single scrap eventually. And I'm sure I have glass in my studio that goes back 40 years, but you never know when you're going to need it. And right now I'm busy working on the new job for the Holly Springs Dohertys. And that's going to take me the next month or two, but keeps me busy and keeps my hands busy, which is what I need for my art. That's it.
And Jane, last but not least. One moment. Try to hold it like that.
Is it on already?
It's all ready to go.
Okay, hi. Today I'm asking you to disengage the part of your brain that says, "Oh, I like that," or "Ooh, I don't like that." Because that's not really what art is all about for the person who's creating. We do want to make money, but the creation doesn't come from trying to please you in general. A quilt is a blanket, but it has three distinct parts. It has a bottom, a middle, and a top. It's held together by stitches, either utilitarian or decorative. I'll show you both. Morgan's, will my assistants come up, please? Morgan's quilt was my first and favorite. And I have to tell you about the class I was taking. The teacher was just what I needed. It was in the back of Thimble Pleasure's quilt shop. There was no preparation ahead of time, and there was pizza for supper. Our instructions were to wander through the shop and quickly choose two fabrics that did not go together. I chose insects and Asian fans. She said, put them beside each other, beside your sewing machine, and now go out and find two more. Find a stripe and a polka dot. That was so much fun. And I can't tell you the weight it took off our shoulders to pick out something that did not go together. It was a whole new idea. So by giving us the time limit, she made us avoid overthinking. And the idea was to finish the quilt top within that class time. Well, I already knew how to cut fabric, so I went at it quite quickly and did not realize till later that I had cut some of the pieces too large. And I'd already assembled them realizing, oh, they don't match. And so I started unstitching and she said, put that down. Nobody's going to know, and it doesn't matter. And so I thought, well, I'll go home and unstitch it. Well, by the time I had it together, she was right. It doesn't matter. And I don't even mind if you try to find my mistake. It doesn't matter. So this is a utilitarianly quilted. Let's see the back, and you'll be able to see where the stitches are just placed here and there. And they're tied. So the advantage of that is it's quick. Several people can work on it at once. But the disadvantage is it doesn't hold its shape as well. Another advantage that it has is that it's cozy and it can wrap around you very nicely. This one, the middle section is a piece of flannel. So it's floppy. It's light. It's perfect for summer. Thank you, gentlemen. And you don't need to fold it this time because I'm going to show you later the proper way to fold a quilt. Just put it on a chair. That'll be fine. Now, my next quilt also has a story, and then after that, I won't tell stories about the quilts. This is my second most favorite quilt. And I didn't tell you which one, did I? This one. I have to read this one because it's very tender to me. This one. So this one began by a class I was taking online. And it was right about the time at the beginning of the class when I found out that I had cancer. And so this quilt became the project that I worked on while I was in the waiting room, waiting for my chemo treatments, which sometimes could be an hour and a half. They had puzzles out that you could work, but that was not for me. I would rather stitch my time away. And so some of these are hand stitched, hand turned under applique. And the other good thing about this one is that it's thick. I mean, it's lofty. If you were to lay it flat, you would see the ups and downs of the stitching that I added later with the sewing machine. That is one of the most difficult things I have ever made in my life, besides a baby. And I will say that those colors are my all-time favorites. And getting this piece right here that repeats itself, getting the depth of that piece to match the depth of those two at an angle was extremely difficult. And I did unstitch many times. So that one is unique to us because it has wool and another batting. It has two battings, so it's fluffy, but it's not heavy because the wool is very lightweight. So what?
Heavy to me.
Oh, yeah. You guys can relax. We're done looking at it. I really do not mind if you come over and rub the quilts as long as your hands are clean because they are tactile. That's part of their purpose. Okay, gentlemen, I think you can relax for a little while. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. It was getting tiring. This one has been above our bed for a long time. And you're going to see some of the same color scheme that you saw in Mel's paintings. I let my assistants go too early. This is called a Bargello. And what's unique about this is that, thank you. What's unique about it is that you get your colors together, 21 different colors, and then you sew them in long strips. So they're always in the same order. And then you cut them, you slice them into different widths. And that's what gives you the wave of this. It's the same order every time. They're just adjusted. It was mind-boggling, and it took years to make that. I kept giving up, thinking I'll never finish this. And then I did. So there you go. Thank you. Chris, how am I doing on time? I can. Okay. We have cats at our house. We had two. Tommy died last week, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. So this has a lot of cats on it, all different directions. And then on the back, oh, now this time this is the top. I know you're not supposed to know. No, we want to see this. You see the cats? Okay. Thank you. That's all for that one. And okay, we're talking about quilts keep you warm. Quilts are wonderful gifts. By the way, how many of you have a quilt that was more or less handmade? Is it in a closet? Thank you. We do not want them in closets. We want them used. This is a toy quilt, meaning that you play with it. And you can be sitting with a toddler or a grandchild, and you can say, pick out a square. Oh, that one. Okay, we're going to start a story. We make up a story about that. Oh, and then point to another one. Thank you. Now point to another one. And the story goes on. So that's called a story quilt. Thank you. And they come in all different shapes and sizes. I normally don't make this type of quilt because each block, this is a block. Each block is different. And the idea of this type of quilt is that you learn a different skill with each block. It's fun up to a point. The other thing about points is the quilters I know really worry when their points aren't perfect or when their points don't match. But I already told Stevie I want her to come and talk to them. The points are not the important part. Now, this one I want you to notice. See how it's got little bloop, bloop, bloops? It's got texture, visual texture. Well, that's because this one has a special bamboo batting. Bamboo is one of the new battings that's being offered now. And thank you. It allows you to have some air. It allows you to have some airflow. And when it's folded for a long time, it doesn't remember its crease as much. This one is next. Oh, wrap up. Oh my goodness. Wrap up? That's what quilts are for, to wrap up. Okay, so let's talk about modern quilts. Modern quilts, thank you, GSBN, for getting us started in that direction. Modern quilts can be whatever. They don't have to match. They don't have to have a plan. They can just be whatever. Love it. This is a type of fabric called cherry wood, and it's hand dyed. Not that, but the other one. It's hand dyed, and so it gives you the look of suede instead of being just one flat color. This one is also cherry wood fabric. I love it. And usually when you make a quilt that's going to hang on the wall, you don't care what's on the back. But this time, guess what was in my stash? Okay, we're going to rotate. Look at that. It's the same colors. And it was just in my stash waiting to be used. Now, one of the things I love about this quilt is that depending on how you fold it, it can be different seasons. Thank you. Okay, this is my picnic quilt. It's made with scraps, and it is so much more fun than points. This one you need to see up close because it's got fancy stitching that I worked really hard on. We put this up every year for Halloween. And these little things, these are the selvage of the fabric, where when they are printing the fabric, it has to be applied to some real stable, pointy like things. And so I don't remember when they started putting words on the selvages, but what fun. Some of these say spooky, every which way, cheeky pumpkin. It's fun to make a cover for a journal. Now these, I will be really quick. These are 12-inch by 12-inch miniature quilts. And in my quilting group, y'all give a lot of money since I'm talking a long time. Okay. Whoever's birthday it is in the group, they got to choose a word. So not at the same time. This one is spring. Wave. That was at a Buddhist temple. The flags. Now the word was sunrise or sunset, but I knew everybody was going to make sunrises and sunsets. So I said, well, what does sunrise and sunset mean to me? It means dependability. It means consistency or constancy. And this is a similar version of the Chinese word for constancy. Contrast. Colors on the color wheel, in and out. Do that one last. Math. And I just thought it needed a cat. See if you can figure this one out. What a group. It's marijuana. If you were up close, you would see a marijuana leaf right here. Or if you knew the chemical symbol, all I did was add the quilting in part of the symbol. You need- I'm 1 minute away. Is that okay? We can, while we're talking, I want Ben to tell you, while we're having our food, Ben can tell you what I want him to tell you. This is a thread.
Thread takes a detour.
Thread takes a detour. This is recycling, where someone gave us a bag that had stuff in it that they no longer wanted, and we were supposed to take what was in our bag and make it into something. Chris and I had been playing a game that is an art game based on Picasso's drawings, and Chris and I used that to make this design. Now, half of that is me and half of it is Chris. I wonder if you can tell. You're right. He's the one with the eyebrows. Now on the back, remember it's recycle.
Yes.
Is that what? No, he still wears his. Our neighbor was a painter, or is a painter, and he painted this. It was a very tall piece, and it was several $100s, but I loved it. And I asked him when the challenge word was door or portal, I asked him, could I make a version of this in a small quilt? He said, sure. So I did. Now, if you know anything about the Chelsea train system, their logo was the sleeping cat. And oddly enough, there was no detail on the cat on the train car. But I wasn't sure people would get that. So I just added a little bit of interest in his face, one eye open and one closed. And you'll notice that that's a belt and a buckle. And he used our zip code as part of the thing. So I'm done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have two mics now. Thank you for your contributions. I appreciate the basket passing. They're still going around. We are an all volunteer society. We appreciate your contributions. We don't receive money from any other organization. We're gonna, instead of having formal question and answer, I think what we're gonna do is have a chance to walk around as we're having snacks. And that'll serve for our question and answer period. So while we're still in the formal part of the meeting, I'd like to ask if there are any announcements folks have. And
Next Sunday is a fifth Sunday. Don't come here because we won't be here. It is an AEU talk. So theirs usually start earlier, and we will send the information out because off the top of my head, I completely don't remember what it is. And then we'll resume with in-person meetings on Sunday, September 7th.
any other announcements? All right.
That is a quilt from the Gee's Bend women. And I would really encourage you to go talk to Ben. He can tell you the history of the Gee's Bend women, and it's fascinating. Thank you.
I think you have a couple more slides too, right? While we're, if you have a chance, come up and talk to Jane and she can tell you and we'll show them while we're going forward. So, our meeting is over, but our fellowship continues. Thank you all for coming here and I think we need to give, all the artists another fantastic work. We have refreshments in the back. Please feel free to wander and enjoy. And as a still working for another few more, maybe less than a year before I retire, microbiologist, I suggest wash your hands before having snacks. Thank you. And before you touch the quilts.